Welcome to another episode of the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast. I'm Dale Corpus, a senior transition specialist and real estate expert based in the San Francisco Bay Area. I created this podcast to empower adult children of aging parents, as well as seniors themselves, with the knowledge, resources, and inspiration to navigate the transition into senior living with dignity and less overwhelm. Whether you're making decisions for a loved one or preparing for your own next chapter, you're in the right place. Today, I'm joined by Nikki Lopez, the founder of Caregiver OneCall, a nonprofit that supports families with caregiving guidance, resources, and compassionate support. Nikki brings a wealth of personal and professional caregiving experience as she launched this organization with the mission of ensuring no family feels alone when navigating complex caregiving decisions. Today, we'll explore her story, her services, and her insight into what families really need in the caregiving journey. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast, where we help families navigate senior living, real estate, and everything in between. Hosted by Senior Transition Specialist Dale Corpus, this show brings you expert insights, real solutions, and stress-free strategies to make senior transitions simple. Ready to dive in? Let's go.
And we're back, everybody. Hey, Nikki, welcome to the podcast today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for asking and for having me, Dale. How are you?
I'm good. This happens to be my 30th episode. My podcast almost been around for nearly 4 months, but we've been rocking it. So it's just welcome to being my 30th guest. So I welcome you. Let's just jump right in.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have a question for you. You ready?
Yes, I am ready.
Okay. So can you start by sharing your personal journey and what led you to launch Caregiver OneCall?
Absolutely. So, Dale, I started this from a place of lived experience with my grandma. I was a caregiver for a long time with her without knowing the word caregiver. There was really no language for it. And I remember thinking, why is it so hard to navigate? And why am I doing it alone? And why does no one check in on me? It's always on my grandma. And I felt bad for having those thoughts, but that was kind of why I started this.
Got it. Now, I understand Caregiver OneCall is a nonprofit. What inspired you to structure it this way, and what makes your nonprofit model unique?
I love that. So I do have a for-profit business that actually focuses on senior care. And too
Okay.
often I do come across persons who need help that just can't afford it. I knew that we had to create something with no financial barrier. And so
Yeah.
with a nonprofit, I just feel like this work that we're doing should not be transactional. Support should be accessible, not just those who can afford it. So that is why I created this as a nonprofit. And what makes it unique is no financial barrier. We really serve every and anyone. We're not focused on just senior care. I noticed in the caregiving space, once you say caregiver, everyone thinks seniors. But this is
Yeah.
for everyone. It's from that mom with a child with autism, someone recovering from surgery at 30 years old, someone with cancer at 40. And of course, our seniors, of course, hold a place in my heart. That it's for every single person who's caring for someone.
Perfect. Now, what was the tipping point that made you realize this kind of support system for caregivers was truly missing in the marketplace?
Wow, I could go back to me and what I felt caring for my grandma, but honestly, it's seeing caregivers cry time after time with no support. Seeing sick loved ones not getting the quality of care that they need because the caregivers, one, aren't trained, or two, they're just tired. It's just not your job to be a
Yeah.
caregiver as a daughter or a sister or aunt, right? And you're kind of
Right.
thrown into it. And so often they're isolated and burnt out. And then that affects the quality of care that the loved ones are getting because you probably forget something important like medications or repositioning or changing their diapers. So it's just seeing that time after time and remembering the support that I needed that led me to do this.
Many of our listeners are adult children of aging parents. Did your own family experience influence how you built your programs?
Absolutely. My grandmother's journey shaped everything from my for-profit to this nonprofit. Watching my mom, especially, even though she's one of seven, but she's the one who kind of took lead for a number of reasons. And we see that dynamic a lot with children where only one person takes lead in caregiving. But usually it's because there are no resources, financial constraints as well. And that really left a mark with me. So I built what we didn't have, what we needed.
Can you paint a picture of what Caregiver OneCall does? What kind of services do you offer to families?
So we offer 24/7 emotional support. We offer training and workshops. We do one-on-one. We do resource navigations and navigating hospice, even sad as it is, pediatrics hospice. We navigate just, getting in touch with elder care attorneys, home care agencies, home health. And so we're giving real-time solutions, whether someone is in crisis or just needs to vent, we're here.
Okay. Now tell me the type of support. Is this support in person? Is it virtual? Is it both? Also, what geographic area do you serve?
So I'm in Antioch, but we do serve the entire California. Naturally, we're focusing on the East Bay because that's where we're headquartered. But our board members are all over California. We have San Diego, Sacramento, Marin County, Alameda. So really, we serve all of California. Our goal is to truly be nationwide. Family caregivers are everywhere, 53 billion per AARP, right? And the Family Caregiver Alliance. California alone has 4.2 million. So needless to say, the demand is here, and that is our initial focus. We do in-person. We do in-person workshops and in-person training. And my for-profit recently received a grant through Alzheimer's Association. So that is now allowing us to do mobile respite, where we're able to actually partner with certain sites here in the Bay Area to provide respite services. This one is specifically for dementia because it's through Alzheimer's Association. So we're able to help those with dementia provide respite services in a couple sites. And the flexibility that Caregiver OneCall has is that we get to do that in a mobile capacity, whether it's at a site we choose to partner with or we go into their homes. Because again, if you're bedbound, we don't want you to feel like you're not supported as a caregiver just because the person you're with is bedbound.
Okay. Now, I want to segue into something else. I know that currently we're in a caregiving crisis, so I want to segue into that topic and what families kind of need to know. First question here is, why do you think so many families wait until a crisis before seeking help with caregiving?
Such a big question, right? And honestly, it's because no one ever expects to become a caregiver. It creeps in quietly and then it hits you. You just wake up and you realize, oh my gosh, I'm a caregiver. No one plans to be it. And I think that's usually why the help takes the time.
Yeah. And what are some of the most common mistakes you see families make when trying to handle caregiving on their own?
Wow. Waiting too long for sure. Waiting too long to get the help, not asking for help. And a lot of times it's because they believe they can do it alone, or you have some cultures, like I'm Jamaican by birth. Culturally, you're supposed to look after your family. You're not supposed to ask for help. All of that is weakness. So it's a number of things, but ultimately it's just waiting too long or feeling like there's no support out there, which is not always true. It does feel like it, but not always true.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes people feel like it's just something they automatically do and they feel like they know everything. But I feel like caregiving is a learned skill, and to be able to connect with other experienced caregivers, it's very helpful. It takes away some of that mental burden and also creates connection because what
Absolutely.
a caregiver is feeling, all the heaviness, other people are feeling that too, and people could relate, right? Now,
Yes.
what kind of emotional toll does caregiving take on the family member who steps into that caregiving role?
Wow. It's deep. It's
Yeah.
lonely. And it often comes with guilt, resentment, and feeling invisible. And again, I know this from me, but I've heard it time after time, Dale. I felt guilty when no one was saying, Nikki, how are you? But everyone was checking in on grandma. And that
Yeah.
hurt because my grandma is my absolute favorite person in the world, right? So you don't want to carry
Right.
that guilt or resentment of making it about you. And so it's a lot of guilt, it's resentment, it's anger, especially if it's a family dynamic where you weren't cared for by that person for whatever reason. And now you have to do it, right? It comes with some resentment and anger from that. And sadly, we've seen from statistics and surveys that suicide ideation is high when those feelings are kicking in.
Okay.
So, the NIH report back in 2024 that there's about 30% of family caregivers who are saying they have suicidal thoughts because of the pressure.
Wow. Now, many of our listeners might feel overwhelmed. What's the very first step you recommend someone take if they suddenly find themselves caring for a parent?
Name it. Start by naming it. Just say it. I am a caregiver. That simple truth holds so much power, and it
Yeah.
starts allowing you to be open to looking at what access and resources there are for you.
And how do you support caregivers who feel like they're burning out or juggling too much?
Well, first, we listen without judgment. We walk through the process with them, and we remind them that they matter too. Caregivers are not seen, right? That's part of the big thing. We know somebody cares for someone, but is that someone that everybody wonders about, whether it's a senior, a child with autism, etc.? The person doing the caring is often invisible. And so we're just here to say we see you because most of us, especially on the board, has that lived experience. And so
Yeah.
we can actually feel. Our executive director, for instance, is
Yeah.
caring for both a son with autism, a veteran with PTSD, and a mother who was just diagnosed with cancer. So again, we are going through the motions and we understand what caregivers are feeling because it is coming from real lived experiences.
Excellent. I know one of your missions is to educate caregivers. What are some things you wish more people knew before they take on a caregiving role?
You said this before, Dale, and it really is something that I say all the time. It's okay not to have all the answers. We don't, right? We help to find resources and we learn as we find these resources for you as well. So it's okay not to have all the answers, and you are allowed to ask for help.
And how do you approach culturally sensitive caregiving, especially with families from diverse backgrounds?
I love that. So in my previous life,
Yeah.
I'm a certified DEI practitioner. So in corporate America, I was doing all the things DEI, accessibility, all of the stuff, the pronouns and everything that comes with that.
Yeah.
And I bring that into the caregiving space, right? So we ask questions, we listen. Every culture defines care differently, and we
Yeah.
honor that. Again, our board is multilingual. We did a video we're about to put on our website where it's 9 different languages that our
Nice.
board speaks, right? So again, by no means does that answer for all of the languages there are,
Right.
but it tells us that we're strategically trying to make sure that we're able to connect with the persons that are calling into us daily.
I love that. I love that too. Now, what are some of the red flags that a caregiving arrangement might not be working either emotionally or logistically?
Wow. If your health as a caregiver is declining, right? Or you're angry all the time, it's
Yeah.
time to reassess. Because certainly if you're constantly angry, you're constantly stressed, and we know when we are, right? We're either sleeping too much or not enough sleep, eating too much or not eating, slamming the phone down on someone, getting really upset about every and anything. That's going to be one of the first things that I would say, slow down and breathe. But Dale, I've seen extreme circumstances and thought processes where I've come across persons who actually was wishing death on the person they're caring for or themselves. That's not even a red flag. That is a stop right now. That's a stop sign. Like you need immediate help.
Yeah, I understand. Well, how do you help families navigate difficult decisions like moving a parent into assisted living or bringing in professional care?
Wow. We break it down. Like we seriously break it down. We're not going to force decisions. We guide people through what ifs. For instance, I personally don't have a preference between in-home care, assisted living. It's what
Mm.
works financially, mentally, emotionally, and culturally for the person, right? Again, for me, I have a home care agency. The board have a social worker. The board has someone who works specifically with hospice, right? So again, we look at all the different options. What exactly is the end goal? Not just for the loved one, but for the caregiver. What makes you happy? Ultimately, we do want to do what's best for the loved one. But I think when the caregiver feel like they have a say in it and we teach them, or at least try to teach how to work with your loved one and come up with not forcing decisions on them, but giving them options and not saying the you statements, but hey, let's think about stuff like that. So it's really around we just give it to them. We give them this is what this is, this is what this is, this is what this is. And we look at the pros and cons and we help them make those decisions.
Okay. I have a two-part question next. And part one is, what's your take on respite care? And two, do families take advantage of it enough?
respite is probably my favorite word in this industry. And I would say respite is not a luxury. It is not a luxury. Like, that's just my go-to right off the bat. Respite literally is survival. And no, families do not use it enough. So again, I mentioned I specifically received a grant from Alzheimer's Association earlier this month, and it is for respite. And I am so excited because for a number of reasons, again, culturally or financially or just not aware of it, people are not taking advantage of respite enough. And if I had one big mission or one big goal, it was to make respite a word that everybody knows, whether you're even in the caregiving space or not.
Speaking of which, I only know about respite care because of the fact that I'm in the senior living space, but a lot of people don't know what the word respite care even means. Are you able to just in layman's term explain what that means?
Absolutely. So respite care means that you as a caregiver gets a break. That's literally it. You get a break. So you get a couple hours here and there for whatever reason. And it may be, unfortunately, a lot of times it's forced breaks, right? Or, and no, it's not a break when your loved one ends up in the hospital and you're still running to the hospital to care for them. That's not a break. A break means you finally have a chance to breathe and think about you for a few hours, maybe a day, maybe overnight. And that's because you have someone else being able to take care of the caregiving duties that you're used to doing. And a lot of guilt comes with it, Dale. A lot of guilt or a lot of fears or nobody knows my mom or my husband or my wife or my kid like me. I'm the one who's going to be the best one for them. And we get that. But you need a break. You know, you just can't pour from an empty cup. It's cliche, but it's true. Like, you have to breathe a little bit. And that's what respite allows you to do, is breathe.
Yeah. And like respite care is kind of like, it's self-care for the caregiver. They need to get re-energized to be able to go back to be able to help, you know, that parent or whoever they are taking care of, right? And I love how you just described it. So thank you very much. Now, next question is related to just navigating the overall caregiving system. I know that caregiving often intersects with the healthcare system, insurance, and legal planning. How do you help families navigate these complicated layers?
Wow. Yes. This is possibly the most challenging part for us right now, day to day, as a nonprofit, because a lot of questions come up, a lot of challenges. We are not experts, right? We are not, estate lawyers. We're not medical or Medicaid specialists, right? So we have to be super careful and mindful of what we do. So to start, on our website, we have quick reference guides, and these are scrubbed basically daily, especially now as things are changing and moving, to make sure that we're putting up-to-date information there. So they're like one-page guiders, quick reference guides is what I would say. That makes it really easy to understand and navigate. We really simplify it. We connect the dot between what families need and where to get it. And we get professionals, especially those with the lived experiences, to help us do the work. So as we do our workshops, we're getting professionals in. We're getting, the state attorneys. We're getting hospice persons. We're getting special needs teachers, whatever it is, we're looking for people with specific experience that can speak to it, and we know it's credible. We also work closely with justice and aging. Again, even though we're not age-focused, we understanding a lot of seniors really need help. And a lot of the calls, 60% of the calls we get are senior-driven, right? But we do work with justice and aging as well. They're putting together training for the board. So again, we can be comfortable with same things. We get different alerts daily from justice and aging because things move so fast in this space. And so to your point, we want to make sure, the name says Caregiver OneCall. We want to make sure that we're credible. We want to make sure we're that one centralized spot for information. And when you get it from us, that information is correct. So we spend daily making sure the info and our resources are up to date and correct.
Perfect. Now, do you ever collaborate with focused professionals? I think you mentioned just right now, even you do collaborate with elder law attorneys, but what about placement agents, fiduciaries, or even real estate professionals?
Absolutely. All the time. So we're strongest when we work as a village, not siloed, Dale. And I'm going to be honest, silence is a huge pet peeve of mine, but it's just way too common in this space, right? In the caregiving space. There are resources, but only very few know of them. I'm still learning of resources day to day. And so again, as I said previously, we want to be that one stop, this is literally one call. So whomever it is that we need to work with, we do work with seniors who want to downsize. So we have, realtors that's focused in downsizing. I mentioned earlier Adriana, right? So she helps in that space. So we do have partners that we work with as the need arises based off what the person's need. Now, I will say we don't make recommendations, right? But at least we have resources and a list of names that we can give. And I probably shouldn't say we don't make recommendations. I'm a little biased to certain places because I've done one-on-one with them. And so, of course, naturally that becomes, so if they're talking to me specifically, then I would make an exact recommendation. Working with one of our volunteers or call center personnel, then we would probably go through a list of, options that we would say work with.
Many families aren't aware of local or state resources. How does Caregiver OneCall help connect people to these services?
We do the digging for them. I think I said that, in terms of even the guides on our websites, we stay up to date so they don't have to. We actually curate a partner list, kind of alluded to that just a few minutes ago, where we have, options to pass out, and we're responsible to make sure that information is correct. I cannot stress enough how important it is, because when you're overwhelmed and stressed, the last thing you want is a number that is not in service, a number that's going to transfer you to somebody else or ask you to call someone else. So, and we're always actively curating our partner list. So I'm just going to say I'm putting it out there. If you know anyone, or if you want to come in, make sure that we have your information. We want to make sure that we're doing business and doing work with people who genuinely understand and do the right thing.
Now, do you ever help people advocate for themselves or their loved ones within hospitals or skilled nursing facilities?
Yes. We help them ask the right questions. And we push them to ask or to say when something doesn't feel right. A big one would be safe discharges, right? For whatever reason, and people get discharged, I think, sometimes too quickly based off what we see and what we hear, right? Who knows what the reasons are? But I think it's important for you to know that if you know this person coming home is not going to be safe, speak up. Like, literally say, this is not going to be safe to send this person home. Because the healthcare professionals, they have a responsibility to safe discharges. That is important. That is critical. And if you need to say that because it's the truth, please say it. Because you'll be saving yourself and your loved one the hassle. So we do that a lot. And sometimes we give questions. These are questions that you should ask, right? Just to kind of make sure they're getting the full answers.
Okay. What do you say to families who feel guilty about asking for help?
That's a heavy one, because guilt shows up a lot, right?
Yeah.
Guilt shows up a lot. I was there too. And so I remind them, asking for help is not giving up. Asking for help is not giving up. It's fighting smart. It is fighting smart. That would be my way to say guilt serves its purpose, guilt serves its place, but it's not the truth teller.
Yeah. Now, you work with so many families. I know there's a lot of just stories attached to all of the families that you work with. What's one story that stands out to you as a reminder of why this work matters?
Yeah, we've had some stories, right? When you work with senior care, seniors are so different, but then there is kind of like a pattern of what to expect.
Right.
With a nonprofit and the fact that we're open to all caregivers, we're never quite prepared for what comes our way. And so there was a mom who called around 2 a.m. 2 a.m. because we're 24 hours. I actually was the one that took that call.
Oh, wow.
Her son had just been discharged from the hospital. He had a feeding tube, no instructions. At least in her mind, no instructions, right? I don't think anyone would send you home without a feeding tube, but there's a lot going on during discharges. And so she was panicking. She'd already called 2 hotlines and she'd gotten a voicemail. Not what you asked, but I just want to interject here. That is what sets us apart. We are 24 hours, right? So we stayed with her on the phone, not just to calm her, but to actually walk her through what to do. And I was the one that was on the phone with her, so I should probably say I stayed on the phone with her. And by the end, she said, you didn't just help me tonight, Nikki, you saved me. And that moment actually stays with me. Like, that's something that I go back to. Dale, again, this started because of my grandma. She's now 98. I have a senior care agency. I know nothing about kids, right? So I'm learning from my board and my executive director in terms of what care for kids look like. And so having to go through that and having to Google the feeding tube and everything else, right? It was a lot of learning for me, but it felt so powerful. It just felt so powerful being able to help walk that mom through.
Yeah. What's the most rewarding part of this work for you personally?
Wow. Watching someone breathe easier. That moment that someone feels seen, if
Yeah.
that makes sense, right? Like, I see you, and they can tell that somebody sees them. I think that's the most powerful part and rewarding part for me.
Okay. Do you ever get emotional during the caregiving journeys you support?
Wow, yes. I'm empath, so we can start there. Um, wow. So yes, I do. I cry often, right? Because the work is real.
Yeah,
This
it
is real
is.
work. The stories stay with me. It stays with all of us in this space, right? And sometimes it can take a while for you to get grounded. So
Yeah.
yeah, I cry more than I should, but it just reminds me I'm human.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of why we do this work.
Yeah. What are the most powerful things adult children can do right now to prepare for the future?
I know you said adult children, but I guess I'll just say generally across the board, right? But yes, especially with adult children, as start talking now. Start
Okay.
talking now. Ask your parents what they want. Make a plan while you still can. Go to their doctor appointments with them so you're not blindsided, so you have an actual look and picture of what's happening. Because sometimes they don't remember. Come on, a doctor visit is so overwhelming, and they're not necessarily able to articulate everything the doctor says when they come home. So I think if you can go to some doctor appointments with them and just have these honest, heart-to-heart conversations before it gets too late.
What do you hope more families will understand about caregiving after hearing this episode?
Caregiving is hard work. Caregiving is hard work. And no, it's not just a task. It is a relationship. It's a relationship with the person you're caring for and their doctors and all the support systems that they need. And it deserves support and it deserves respect. I think that's probably the biggest missing piece is the respect piece. So yeah, it's hard work and you deserve to be respected for it.
Okay. Nikki, what's one myth or misconception about caregiving you wish you could bust forever?
So here, I should have waited. That caregiving only means taking care of seniors. Oh my gosh, if I hear that one more time, it doesn't. It's not just seniors that need care. Caregiving shows up in every age group, from parents of kids with disabilities to spouses, your siblings, even your friends, right?
Yeah.
And so the face of a caregiver is not always what you expect, and they're not always looking after seniors. So yeah, that would be one big myth that I would like removed. Just remove it from it just being a senior space.
Yeah. Now, where can listeners go to learn more about Caregiver OneCall and how to work with you?
Yes. So our website is going to be the first place to start, www.caregiveronecall.org. So it's caregiveronecall.org. There you're able to follow us on our social medias as well. There you see the work that we're doing, events that we have coming up, workshops and training, which is always a big one. Then you get to see the board as well. That would be the first place that I would say reach out to get connected with us. Of course, if you need support, right now, if you're a caregiver and you need support, you're not going to go to a website. You're going to call us at our 24/7 hotline, which is 833-927-9899. So that would be where I would say you would go to get support immediately. Otherwise, you want to learn about us on our website.
Perfect. So a related question I have to this is if someone is listening to this episode and unsure whether they need help yet, what should they watch out for as a sign to reach out to you?
Yes. Exhaustion. Exhaustion, anger, confused, overwhelmed. Yeah, all of those things. If you're exhausted, if you're angry, if you're confused more than usual about anything, whatever that could be, it is time to reach out and get some support.
Okay. And final question, Nikki. I know we covered a lot. We went over different topics and whatnot. Is there anything I should be asking you now that I didn't ask yet? Or any final words?
First, I do want to say thank you because I think the questions you asked were so strategic and it really breaks down what it is that we do. And, for us, it's really about we are trying to create awareness. We're working with the city. We're working with the supervisor, Chanel's Gus Preston for District 5. And again, we're starting here in the Contra Costa County because that's where we're headquartered, but that's not where we're stopping. We're strategically trying to work with different cities, city leaders, because awareness is going to be the big thing for us. Not only, of course, awareness as a nonprofit is important because we get to meet funders and to meet donors, and we always need donors because, again, we're a nonprofit. We survive from grants and donations, right? But
Right.
outside of that, the biggest thing for all of us on the board is we need more calls. And I'm not saying we need more calls because we're bored or because we just need calls. It's because it's the right thing to do. That's what this mission is about helping caregivers. And we know if California has 4.4 million caregivers, that there are people out there that need support that just don't know where the support is. And so the big thing I would say is awareness, 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 awareness. Because we can bridge that gap. We can reduce those statistics around suicidal ideation. We can have caregivers show up daily knowing they're seen, they're valued, they're respected. And what that transitions to is quality of care for their loved one. Less hospital visits, less hospital readmissions, less falls, less bed sores, less, all the stuff, right? So it's a two-way street where the caregiver is going to be cared for and the loved one is being cared for. Like, it is literally a win-win. So we need people to be able to reach out to us and call us. Again, our 24/7 support line is 833-927-6599. 833-927-6599 is a 24/7 support line.
Well said. Thank you, Nikki. And thanks for closing out like that. I love the message. Again, thank you so much for being here and for the heart and soul you bring to caregiving. Your compassion and commitment to easing the journey for families is truly inspiring. And I know our listeners gain so much insight from your stories and perspective. And for those of you watching or listening, if your loved one is considering senior living and you need to figure out what to do with their home, let's talk. Schedule a free consultation with me by clicking on the Calendly link in the episode description box of this podcast episode. You can learn more about my services at www.simplifyseniortransitions.com. Have a quick question, DM me on Instagram at SoldByDale. And if you found this interview helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who might need this information. Thanks for tuning in. One last thanks to Nikki for being on the episode today. And I'll see you all in the next episode of the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast.